Thank you, Acting Speaker, and it's good to see you in the chair. And I rise today to contribute to the Regulatory Legislation Amendment Reforms Bill 2025. And at 48 pages, this is a pretty standard omnibus bill which makes simple changes to numerous acts, I think around 14 acts, if I've counted correctly, in order to support effective and efficient regulation and ensure consistency with other legislation, and it streamlines the processes and it reduces administrative burdens and it corrects minor errors. So in other words, we're trying to make it simple, make it sure that the legislation works for all Victorians and make it a better place to live, work and do business. And of course, over the last 10 years, we have reviewed and reformed regulations in liquor, environmental protection, essential services, electricity, building and construction, health, planning, consumer affairs, fee pricing, owners corporation and a lot more. And we've legislated regulatory improvements to automatic mutual recognition, cladding safety, wage theft, gender equality, casino and gambling laws, as well as worker screening processes, green energy and greater energy market protections, just to name a few. And we have reduced Victoria's regulatory burden by about 25%. Local governments will be able to better manage the potential risk posed by dangerous, menacing and restricted breeds of dogs, and amendments to the Domestic Animals Act 1994 requiring the owners to notify local governments if the dog dies or is relocated. We'll ensure that local councils have an accurate mapping of where these dogs are and the current details to inform compliance and enforcement activities. It also means that councils will have better data on the location of these dangerous dogs, helping to keep our communities safe. And I just want to refer to the contribution by the member for Albert Park about the dangerous dogs that she or her mother encountered in regard to her mother's dog. And we must make sure that with dangerous dogs that the owners take greater responsibility. And unfortunately, there are some people in our communities that use these dangerous dogs just to intimidate other members of the community. And of course, our public officials will be empowered to better protect members of our community with amendments to the Adoption Act 1984, which allows the Secretary of the Department of Justice and Community Safety to not disclose certain adoption information where they believe it may increase the risk of harm to another person, including family violence. So further amendments will allow the Secretary to notify or seek consent from a party, thereby alerting a person in certain cases where a request for adoption information is received, and where the Secretary believes this action would increase the risk of harm. Of course, natural relatives of an adopted person, such as siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents, will be able to receive identifying information about an adopted person for the purposes of reunification, and that's a good thing. Of course, as it stands, natural relatives are eligible to receive only non-identifying information about an adopted person, which reflects the ongoing shame and stigma of historical forced adoptions at the time the Adoption Act was introduced. So this prevents natural relatives from identifying the child's adoptive parents or the whereabouts of the adoptive parents or the adoptive person, and especially for members of the stolen generation, which this is really important too. So we anticipate that this reform will allow many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who were forcibly removed from their families and their descendants to reconnect with their communities, their families, their country, and of course their culture, and this is so important. The amendment is consistent with the 2021 parliamentary inquiry into responses to historical forced adoptions. And of course, it recognised the grief and the trauma caused by historical forced adoptions that most of us here would never ever understand or appreciate, and the importance of improving access to adoption records and information for those that have been affected. One of the other things that this bill goes to is the illegal waste dumping. And in my local area of Melton, we see on the sides of the roads much waste dumped, unfortunately. in particular things like mattresses and other rubbish that's carelessly dumped on the roadsides, in particular along places like the Melton Highway. And I've had several constituents contact me to report illegal waste dumping near their houses, and again, as I say, along the highways and the back roads of my electorate. And of course, some of the other concerns that have been raised have also been around building sites and the dumping on building sites, and people seem to think that they have a right just to dump rubbish wherever they feel that they want to, whether that be building sites or on the side of the roads. And personally, I think the penalties in regard to waste dumping and rubbish dumping, regardless of where it is, should be much, much heftier. I think it's a terrible act just to dump rubbish anywhere you like, and it's a complete disregard for the environment. Of course, changes to the Environmental Protection Act 2017 means that people and businesses who illegally dump rubbish are more likely to be caught. Currently, the EPA can pursue the owner of a vehicle only when it is unable to identify the driver of a vehicle. So this means the EPA is unable to pursue companies that are deliberately and systemically dumping waste as a business practice, often in large quantities. And I should say that we experienced a situation like this at the back of our place, where a whole heap of rubble and rubbish was dumped. There's a creek at the back of our place, and it was dumped, many truckloads of it, illegally. And we pursued the offenders, and there were quite hefty penalties applied. This is some years ago, but there were quite hefty penalties applied, and they had to clean it up at great costs, I'm pleased to say. But they had complete disregard. They just took it upon themselves just to drop truckloads of rubbish and rubble at the back of our property in a creek bed, unfortunately. Of course, these amendments will allow the Environment Protection Authority to pursue a business or business owners where a vehicle owned by that business has been used to illegally dump waste. And again, I make reference to the penalties that apply, and I think they should be a lot harsher in regard to people thinking that they can just get away with it and that they have a right to dump rubbish. This is a significant new bill that introduces amendments across multiple legislative frameworks, and these changes aim to improve, as we say, the regulatory efficiency and enhance protections for individuals and businesses, and they align existing laws with contemporary governance standards. One of the primary objectives of the bill is to reinforce regulatory oversight and enforcement mechanisms, and the amendments include things like establishing a clear 6-year limitation period for civil penalty proceedings, ensuring accountability while providing regulatory certainty. Under the Domestic Animals Act, restoring penalty provisions for offences related to seized animals and mandating notification requirements for owners of dangerous or restricted dog breeds. Under the Children, Youth and Families Act 2005, enhancing the framework for Aboriginal child welfare services by allowing non-Aboriginal siblings to be included in Aboriginal agency oversight, improving continuity of care. Of course, enhancing environmental protections and corporate accountability. And again, I went to that before about the dumping of rubbish. The Mineral Resources Sustainability Development Act 1990, enhancing protections for commercially sensitive information, ensuring confidentiality in regulatory processes. So there are many changes to this bill to make it a better bill, or better bills, and cleaning up the bills to make it easier for Victorians. Of course, a number of changes aim to reduce the administrative burdens and improve digital governance and align legislation with contemporary operational practices. It allows Service Victoria to charge fees for its services, ensuring financial sustainability of digital service delivery. As we say, there's many changes to these bills, 14 bills in total. And of course, it removes outdated references to, say, paper-based conveyancing, modernising fee structures and clarifying regulatory authority. This is an important bill, and I commend the Minister responsible for this bill, and I commend the bill to the House.